Hey everybody, how are you today? I'm thinking about you and I am praying for you. I'm praying that things are going well, that you are um, learning something new, having some fun, getting used to being home more. I know that this just feels like a really, really strange time. So today I'm going to read the last book I have about God. I hope you have been able to watch all the books about God because I think they're all important and I think they can lead to really great conversations about God, which is a really, really hard idea. Like it's hard to understand exactly what that means. What does God mean? What does God look like? What does God do? What are names for God? Those are all important things, and grown-ups wonder these same things that you do. So it's great to talk about that with your grown-ups. So today I'm going to read a book called In God's Hands, and it is by Lawrence Kushner and Gary Schmidt, illustrations by Matthew J. Bayek. And I love this book. It's a book that I've learned a lot from because that's kind of how books are. I feel like you can learn a lot from books, even picture books. When the sun sets and the stars fill the sky, the square in the little town grows quiet and still. The cool air of distant hills mingles with the sweet scent of baking bread. The moon rises and glows softly. It's the sort of place where miracles could happen. But miracles were the furthest thing from the imaginations of Jacob and David. Jacob was a rich man. He was too busy thinking about how to make more money to look for a miracle. When he came into the synagogue, the rabbi would hardly begin to speak before Jacob fell sound asleep. When the service was over, Jacob would wake up and walk back home. David was a poor man. He was too busy thinking about how to feed his family to look for a miracle. He was the caretaker of the synagogue. When the prayers were done, he would sweep and dust and tidy up the place. Then he would go back to a house empty of everything but hungry children. That's pretty much how it went day after day, and that's pretty much how it might have kept on going until one morning Jacob, the rich man, did something he had never done before. He woke up just for a moment during the teaching of the Torah. Why did Jacob wake up just then? Who knows? But he did, and just long enough to hear one verse from the book of Leviticus. You shall bake 12 loaves of challah and set them before me in 2 rows, 6 in each row. That was it. Then he yawned and fell back to sleep. I wonder what you know about the Torah. We read part of the Torah when we are reading from the books of the Bible that we call the Old Testament. And challah, I wonder if you've ever heard of that. Challah is a kind of bread. When the service was over, Jacob rubbed his eyes and swallowed hard. The sound of the words were still so clear in his ears that he was sure they must have been from God who had spoken to him. But why me, of all people, he wondered, and why 12 loaves of bread? On the other hand, who am I to question God? So Jacob, the rich man, hurried home across the square and baked 12 loaves of challah. But now he had a problem, how to get the bread to God. He decided that the synagogue was the holiest place he knew, so he put the loaves of challah in a sack and carried them back to the synagogue. I wonder if you know what a synagogue is. This is a great thing to talk to your parents about. These are great conversations. What is a synagogue? And how can you compare it to maybe a place that you go? But where in the synagogue should he put the challah? By the doorway? That was too busy. On the shelf of the holy books? Too crowded. By the eastern wall? They might get stepped on. Then Jacob saw the holy ark. Of course, he thought. He walked up the steps, opened the doors to the ark, and carefully set the 12 loaves inside in 2 neat rows on the flattened sack, just as God had told him. Then, feeling a little foolish, he closed the doors and walked back home. No sooner had Jacob left than David, the poor man, came into the synagogue to clean up. He swept, he dusted, and he tidied. Then he stopped in front of the holy ark. His family had so little, and he was so hungry. "Oh God," he prayed, "we are out of food. O Lord of infinite wisdom and compassion, I'm afraid that if you do not see fit to help us soon, we shall starve." He looks really sad. Then he opened the doors of the ark And there they were, 12 loaves of challah. Oh God, David said, I didn't know you worked like that. Blessed are you, O Lord our God, who answers the prayers of those who call upon you in need. Overjoyed, he gathered the 12 loaves into the sack and ran home to show his wife and children the bread from heaven. No sooner had he left than Jacob, the rich man, came back into the empty synagogue, curious to see if God really ate challah. He slowly approached the ark and opened its doors. The challahs were gone. Oh my God, he whispered. God, you really ate the challah. It is a miracle. I thought you were only kidding. Please forgive me. I wasn't sure it was really you, so I scrimped on the eggs. This is wonderful. Next week I will be back with 12 new loaves, and this time I will spare no expense. He closed the doors of the ark and ran home to tell his family that God had accepted their gift. So the next week, just as he had promised, Jacob the rich man brought to the synagogue 12 loaves of challah, and this time with raisins. He placed them in 2 neat rows inside the ark. Praise are you, O Lord our God, he said, who accepts the gifts of those who offer them in love. No sooner had Jacob left than David, the poor man, came in. Oh God, he prayed, we have eaten all the challah you gave us, and some we have given away to those less fortunate, but now there is nothing left again. I know I should not ask, and I hope you will not think me greedy, but you think in your infinite compassion. He slowly approached the ark as he spoke. You could somehow see fit to bestow on your servant another small gift, perhaps just one more tiny miracle. He opened the door of the ark, and sure enough, there were 12 loaves of challah, and this time with raisins too. Another miracle, and even better than the first, cried David. This is wonderful. Praised are you, O Lord our God, who answers the prayers of those who call upon you in truth. He scooped up the loaves and ran home to share God's gift with his wife and children. And so it went, week after week. Jacob the rich man brought the 12 loaves of challah to the ark as a gift for God. And week after week, David, the poor man, brought home 12 loaves of challah from the ark as a gift from God. The weeks grew into months, and the months, years. Jacob's giving and David's receiving became a routine thing. The rich man would run into the empty synagogue with a sack of challah and just throw them into the ark, and no sooner did he leave than the poor man would run in and scoop up the challahs and shout, "Thanks, God." Then one day the rabbi happened to come back into the prayer hall late one afternoon and watched the whole amazing thing. Astonished, the rabbi called Jacob and David back and told them what he had seen. Jacob and David were astonished too. "The Holy Ark is not some kind of heavenly bakery," said the rabbi. "I should have known God doesn't eat challah," said Jacob, his voice low and sad. "There wasn't any miracle after all." "I should have known God doesn't bake challah either," said David, his voice low and sad too. "There wasn't any miracle after all." "You are correct. God does not eat challah, and God does not bake challah," said the rabbi with a kindly smile. "God's miracles are not like that." Then the rabbi took their hands in his. "Now that you know that God does not eat challah and God does not bake challah, you will have to do something even harder. Jacob, you will have to go on baking bread anyway. David, you will have to go on eating bread also. Now you understand that your hands are God's hands." Jacob and David looked at their hands, and then they looked into each other's faces. They understood. Now, Jacob and David often come to the synagogue together. They sit side by side. Jacob does not fall asleep during prayers, and David's belly does not growl from hunger. After prayers, they come out and stand together in the warm sunshine. If you were there, you might see them, two men standing together, looking at one another, two men who understand that their hands are the hands of God. I love that book. I think that's such a great book. And we talk about being the hands of God. If you come to midweek missions or in Sunday school, or if you have prayed with me, a lot of times we talk about that, being the hands and feet of God. So this book just is a great example of showing that. And I think that we are the hands and feet of God in many, many ways. So today I have a few things for you to do. One is to think about, how are you the hands and feet of God? What kinds of things do you do that can serve God, that makes things happen that God would want to have happen, loving, kind, generous things. And then I'm going to ask you to do kind, generous things. So I wonder if you could be the hands of God while you're at home. I wonder if you could be the hands of God by being helpful at home. I wonder if you could help your grown-ups take care of things around the house. I wonder if you could be mindful about how, if you have brothers and sisters, how you treat your brothers and sisters. And the other thing is, kind of building on other things we've talked about, I wonder if there are older neighbors or relatives who you can take the time to reach out to. Because that is definitely something that is like being the hands of God, if you're reaching out to people who maybe are feeling kind of alone. I also have asked you before if you could maybe make fun pictures and thank yous and things like that for people you know who are working really hard, maybe in hospitals right now, and who need kind of our extra love and support. Or think about all the people who are working so hard around our community to take care of us, like people who are working in grocery stores, or people who drive trucks to make sure that things in grocery stores get resupplied. So lots of people are working really hard to make sure that we can continue to have all the things that we need and to make sure we're healthy. So it's important that we're kind and that we thank them. So being kind and thankful with people that's being the hands of God. So that's my assignment for you. And I hope you're having a great day. I hope you're getting a chance to be outside. So I will see you soon.